Good morning. Thanks for coming. I would like firstly to say thank you very much to organizers and volunteers. You works perfectly. It's very awesome conference. It's the first time I'm here. I didn't expect. It's very huge community here. Italian community, very friendly, very open. You do very good job for the Python community and for everything. So thank you very much. Yeah. My name is Daria, and I'm working right now in the Nilearn. It's a research center in France, and I'm working in the parietal team. And my supervisor is Gaël Warencois and Bertrand Thirion. They are main contributors of Nilearn, and they work on the scikit-learn too. So right now I will present this new Nilearn toolbox that compare and combine machine learning techniques with the neuroscience. And I would like to talk about how we can move forward to the open source, open data, and collaborative neuroscience. Neuroscience, it's very hot topic right now, and recently it's more popular not just in the science community. The government is more interested in that. It's neuroscience people, it's very huge community too. They are very friendly. There are a lot of different conferences and meetings, collaboration between different groups, and in each university you can find somebody that works on neuroscience and machine learning together. It has community is very active, and it has very social impact on the social impact. For example, to analyze and to work with the different diseases and dementias. For example, aging, to find the patterns between patterns in the young brain and old brain, and help the people that has different dementia, different neurodegenerative diseases. And this make a lot of economy impact for. So in Europe, there are a lot of new European projects that start to be not just for 2 years or 3 years. They want 10 years grants and huge project with collaboration, all type of the types of the science and type of the university, industry, research centers. And of course, so I skip this line. So this is about the neuroscience, but it's huge community in Python, and how we can combine it, how we can mix these two things together and work together. So the main part of Nilearn, it's of course scikit-learn, and it's NiPy and nibabble. This is tools for load the for the medical images, because MRI images had specific resolution and specific type of images. So we use NiPy and nibabble. Of course, it depends on the matplotlib to visualize the brain and visualize the results of the experiments. Of course, SciPy, the scientific tool for everything. NumPy, but main we want to see how we can combine neuroimages and machine learning. So when you start to, when you want to know new software, for example, you need 3 main things. It's data, it's soft, and it's documentation and examples. So if we want to be and have some progress in the neuroscience or another type of the science, we need more data. And we want people working on this data. even you're not very familiar with neuroscience, you can have this data, you can try your methods, you can try new techniques that it's probably so far that we are using. But all discovering, it's what we can do together, not just computer science people or neuroscience people. We want public data. And of course, why we want to do this type of the software, we want to standardize the procedure. And if you give some images to different research group, they will be processed and analyzed in different ways. But we want something very common and standard on the main process of the images and analysis of the images. And of course, we want interdisciplinary work. So we want to involve people from many different science area, industry, and for that, if they can understand what is the problem in neuroscience and define and proper problems and make definition of their problems. And of course, we need documentation. Documentation, first of all, it's help for the user. We need examples. Examples, it's very helpful everywhere. And I think very important and justification of what are you doing. So putting the reference to the scientific articles and publish not just your code, but why you use this kind of the methods and justify your pipelines. So yes, it is main motivation to do this software. It makes science more open to the people, to everywhere and everyone, promote more research and collective work together, and have visibility in the data and visibility in the code. So share your code, share the data too. So I'm working with the MRI images, and it's a very good technique. It's not invasive technique, so you don't have to make operation to get more information about brain. But it's not just brain. It could be, it's very versatile technique. You can get normally more information, and it's very helpful for diagnosis. So mainly we have a lot of different types of the images. You can have the anatomical MRI that make see what is exactly the anatomy of the brain, what is the evaluation, what is the differences in the, for example, young brain and old brain, what is the difference in anatomy and, for example, for the patient of Alzheimer's disease. We have also the functional MRI that we use a lot in the Nilearn. There is two types of the functional MRI. Task, when you do some specific task and they may, for example, recognize some faces, or you can do some mechanical task, typing or something, or playing music also. And there is another type of the functional MRI when you don't have a task, you just stay in the scanner, try to don't think about some specific subject. And in this case, we try to discover some specific patterns. And it's very important to compare and to find these patterns in the diseases. And we have DTI, we have PET. So mainly in Nilearn, we work with these two types, so two types of them of the MRI. So what about data? If you want to apply your methods, you need more and more data. There is three ways that you can get it. So be involved in some private project and contact with the hospitals. They can provide this data, but normally you had to be really in the project. They cannot give you, it's not open. They have very specific license, and it's not even licensed that they cannot do it open. So normally it's small database on very specific disease, And the main problem, it's so small, the samples, that you cannot really have nice, like very important conclusions, because it could be like 20 subjects or even 100 of subjects. And the main problem of this clinical data, you cannot reproduce result because nobody can get this data, just you. So you can work on it, but in last year the reproducibility of the examples of the experiments, it's very important. Another way to get the data, it's open data project, and every year it's they make more different database, and they make it bigger. So, for example, UK Biobank, they will have a lot of years doing, and they will have huge data of participants. Another kind of the open project and the human connectome project, the database is on the autism with the kids, with the old people, and it's very important for society and for us to understand what is autism about. A database about Alzheimer's disease, it's very popular data. There are a lot of research projects on that. And the third, how you can get the data in the Nilearn soft, we have fetching. So we have already downloaded the database, but what you have in these 2 points. So before analyzing your data, you have to pre-process it. You have to make it possible to use machine learning or other techniques. To do so, you have to investigate a lot, and you have to study how to do it. It's not a simple task. In fetching, we already pre-process the data, and we get it together. So it's not messy. It's not. There is no missing data. So how can you do the fetching in Nilearn? We have the function, and that it's called, so you import from Nilearn the data set. In this particular case, it's called the data called COBRE. It's a data about schizophrenic disease, and in new release we have 146 subjects. It's already pre-processed, and in new release it's even more light data, so you don't have to download gigabytes of the data. So you use fetch COBRE, and you use number of subjects you want to download, and there is another parameters what kind of the data exactly you want to download. So in fetching, it's not always the data. Why we need this kind of the fetching of different data? It's collaboration with another soft, for example, FCL, SPM. It's very important software that exists many years. They have very high standard of pre-processing and analyzing. So to collaborate with them and to be involved in the community, we want to use their templates or different atlases they already used to compare results that was done before, compare results with different laboratories, with different research centers. So it's integration to community and be part, not invent the things not invent what we, yeah. Yeah, oh my God, 5 minutes. I will go. Okay, so important, one of the important example, it's decoding and encoding. It's very popular in cognitive neuroscience, so you have stimuli for recognizing the face and cats, and you in the scanner, and you have brain activation maps. And decoding, it's use these brain activation maps to predict what kind of stimuli we have. And encoding, it's the opposite. So you use stimuli and you predict the location of the activation maps. How can you do it in Nilearn? So we have very good example. It's very famous. It's Huxley example. So they have, I think they have 6 subjects and 12 different stimuli. This we get one subject with the face stimuli and cat stimuli, and we using SVM to decode. So we can predict if it's cat or face, and then, sorry, the visualization. So this is the brain and localization of this in the brain with the voxels that respond to the face or cat. Another very important technique or experiment is functional connectivity. So functional connectivity is connectivity between brain regions that share this functional property. It could be a very special, separate brain region, but they work together, and then they can combine to be like network working together. So the main pipeline that you can use in you can do in Nilearn. So the first step, it's time series extraction. So you had to define your brain regions, and you use it with atlas. Or, for example, you can use different atlases, and for different region you extract the time series. Then you calculate the correlation maps, and you can visualize it. So how do you do it in Nilearn? You fetch the atlas. In this case is Basque multi-class atlas. There is different types of the atlases with the same name. Then you import nifty-lab mask to extract the time series, and then you apply it for each subject for the COBRA database. So for each subject in this database, you apply the fit transformation to each subject, and you obtain all the time series of all the subjects. The correlation maps, you import the connectivity measure, and in connectivity measure you have different types of calculated. You select these parameters and you calculate the correlation maps. And you can, of course, visualize this connectome, and then you can use these connectivity maps to predict something or to classify different subjects. What is important in version of Nilearn, we use, it's very useful to use parameters of job libs. Job libs, it's very useful tool to provide a lightweight pipeline in Python. In what we like, we can avoid the computing, twice computing. For example, we have the same database, but we have slightly different examples, slightly different experiments. For example, we always need to have, if it's array of 4D array, we have to mask it to 2D array, and it's very consuming. So indicate it, where is your cache? It will be next time you will apply another experiment on the same data, it's already know where you was masking and how it was done. So every time it will be less consuming. And number of jobs, number of CPUs you can use. And visualization. There is different type of and soft for neuroscience visualization. And so you can use, you can visualize templates, you can visualize the results, the blobs, the statistical maps of the experiments with different parameters, with different slices, with different intensities, depends on to compare in results. Sometimes you want to visualize fMRI, that it's less popular, but sometimes you need it. There is very nice visualization that's called crystal brain. If you're not very into anatomy and you want to compare results. And of course, the visualization of the connectome. And documentation. So we have very nice user Git. It has the description of every function in the tool, and references to the method we use in these particular functions. And what is nice, we have examples. It's example in notebook with a lot of description, what are you doing. with description of the problem, and we have the code, working code, so you can download it and you can play with that. And yeah, the conclusion. So we part of the, it's very useful. Nilearn, it's the advanced machine learning technique tool for the neuroimages. We part of the Python ecosystem. We have huge impact in community. We're involved in both communities. And every month, so this is a statistic of downloading the toolbox from 15 to nowadays. This is all main part of the contributors. I think right now we are like 54 person that contributed a lot. And if you want to use it, and please make the reference of this article, it's very important to know how many people use it. And it's very important to ask for the project and see that we have and do some important stuff. And this is the GitLab repo to download to explore the brain.
Many thanks to Daria and those contributors. We have 5 minutes for the questions. Go ahead.
You mentioned that the availability of the dataset is not always optimal. In the case,
optimal, sorry?
It's not optimal in the case of the number of cases shown in the research. I was interested in knowing if now the research lab are more aware and there's a sort of collaboration between who want to do machine learning in this dataset, and if they're aware to make better dataset, if there is an open discussion between the researcher and
yes, it's open, and there are a lot of meetings. We try to explain machine learning to the neuroscientists, and that have the feedback from them, and of course learn, because we can read a little bit, what is a problem and what is about, but just talking with them and just interaction, it's very helpful, because I can read some neuroscience articles and I will 2 weeks reading, but then in 5 minutes I learn more in the interaction, in the meeting with these guys, and they're super clever. They're very open to share. So yeah, a lot.
They are still public, or
the public data, or
yeah,
yes. So that was this the first one. They're doing it public. I think it's not already, but Human Connectome project you have to download. And last month they made new release. They add more data. Like it was 500 and 800 of subject, and right now it's 1,200 subjects. You can download already pre-processed data, and there is a lot of references, what people doing, what is the problem about, so you can find your problem, or you can propose it if you see some interest in that. And there is a lot of description what is data, that it's important too, because sometimes you see the data, but what is about it? Yeah. So these kind of, you can, there is some platform when there is a lot of data in the same web page, you can download it. Sometimes you have to ask for permission, because they want a little bit to control, so you have to explain what are you going to do with this data. But yeah, normally it's shareable, and yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Yes, I think the time is over. Thank you so much.